Kitty in the city here. On my way to Michigan to see Mr. Purrfect. So this is my first vlog that I'm going to be doing for Kitty in the City with a little side vlog from my podcast, Kitty Chronicles, where we talk about dating do's and don'ts in this dumpster fire. And somehow I got lucky. And if you've seen some of the podcasts, then you'll already know that I met somebody on a dating app. And the reason why I call him Mr. Purrfect is that he's done everything pretty perfect as far as what I think and what a lot of people that I've talked about think that anyone should do, or at least for men should do. So when we talk about dating do's and don'ts, here's the do. So we're going to talk about Mr. Purrfect, who he who shall not be named except Mr. Purrfect, at least not right now. So Kitty's going to keep that a secret, but we're going to talk about all the things that Mr. Purrfect is doing and all the things that Kitty is doing in reciprocating. So the things that we were talking about, the masculine energy, the feminine energy, the things that is going to make dating and relationships right, and not just for Gen X guys. I mean, this is, for everyone, really. So I've learned from not only my own dating escapades and past relationships, for me, for Kitty, what do I want? I know what I don't want. Certainly know that. So the deal breakers. And I'm pretty sure I know what I do want. There's this other gray area, because we live in black and white, right? Gray area of that is maybe there's some things that I never realized that I wanted. And when you meet somebody or find somebody, you figure out, So one of the last things that I didn't realize that not only did I want, but I needed, was fun. Gotta have that check marked off on that box. Gotta have fun. And I never really considered it, because I guess maybe I was having fun in my past relationships. It's just it's not about, it is about romance, it is about chemistry and finding the right fit, but you could be checking off all those boxes, that it all looks good on paper, and then when you're not being romantic, or you're not in the bedroom, or you're having fun that way, you're out there in the real world, which is at least 95% of the time, you're not having fun. This person is dull, or just I guess tapping into our inner child, right? That's where we have fun. And for all the Gen Xers like me out there, there's just so many ways to do that, nostalgic ways. So that's and music and all the things that go into that. So which is why Kitty Chronicles is all about nostalgia, and looking for ways to continue to have fun in life, because life's too short, right? So I said on my podcast, I went on a dating app, again, just for research purposes, and I really did. I went on there. Good God, it was horrifying. But we were talking about first looks, and we're talking about first impressions on dating apps, and we're talking about the do's and don'ts about profile pictures and all that kind of stuff. So I, you're swiping left and swiping right, so I wound up swiping on this guy. Is like, oh well, he's cute. He's kind of checking some of the criteria there that I'm looking at, except one. He lives in Michigan, which is a 3-hour drive, both of us. Well, shit, that sucks. But it kind of had run the gamut of most of the people that live around me in the Dayton area. Even gone to Cincinnati, had a couple of relationships where they were an hour away. Great guys, whatever. Just that the distance thing is tough, especially an hour away. It's like an hour away is like, it's too much to, okay, I don't want to drive home after this date, and we want to, hang out together, and so you wind up having them spend the night like way too early, and my ex Teddy would tell you, yeah, we started sort of playing house too early, and it's, you can't do that. It kind of ruins a relationship a little bit, because you're not ready to necessarily, have somebody be spending the night and getting up, and then you wind up having them spend the weekend, because you're going out Friday night, going out Saturday night, whatever. But then you can't really see them during the week, because it's like, okay, you've either got to drive an hour and come here, let's go to dinner, or go to a show, or whatever you're going to do, so you can see each other during the week, and then it's like, and then you got to drive an hour back, or one of you has to, or you can meet in the middle, and that's still, it's kind of rough to try to see somebody during the week. So that was part of, I think, a lot of the problems that exist with long distance, distances over an hour. So Mr. Purrfect is in Michigan. He's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where the University of Michigan is, in case some of you don't know. But we have this big Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, which it's kind of funny, because my ex-husband was a huge Michigan fan. He really liked the rivalry between him and his dad, so he picked it for that reason. And so when we got divorced 6 years ago, has it been 6 years? Almost, yeah, probably, yeah, 2019. 6 years ago, I got to be an Ohio State fan again. I'm actually an Alabama fan because of my mother, but that's where my heart belongs. So that's never went away. And I'm not huge into football, but the rivalry is fun, right? It's fun. So now I got this Michigan guy, right? What am I going to do with that? So, but he played it right. He answered my questions. He put enough on his profile for me to, get, hey, good profile pictures, that we talk about. They were current. They were, nice. I could, be like, all right, well, as long as you look like this in person, like, we're good. So I talked about in Kitty's Corner, actually a little bit about the first date, which was amazing. But he decided that he was going to drive to Dayton. I think it was on a Tuesday, and we were both off. And he comes and he, shows up at the door with flowers, which, okay, guys, let me just tell you, that's wonderful. And it's because I didn't expect it, but it's because he took the time to think about me. It's not even really a first impressions thing about that. It's just more of a, hey, not only am I driving 3 hours to come meet you, I'm hoping that, that you're everything that you appear to be on paper on a dating app, for Christ's sake. But I'm going to bring her flowers, because that, I want her to know how much I, respect her and want to give something to her. That was big. It was really big, Mr. Purrfect. God. So flowers, yeah. And he picked me up, which I know that's scary for a lot of people, but I was like, you know what? We talked on the phone. I thought I vetted him pretty decently. It's all good. So we basically had an all-day date, lunch, and then we hung out in the afternoon at a bar, and then we had dinner, and then he drove home, and we've been talking ever since, and it's like, so I got off the dating app pretty much because, again, I wasn't looking for somebody anyway, but that would have been how I would have handled it anyway. It was kind of more of a one person at a time. You could talk to multiple people a little bit. You try to get some conversations going, which is like pulling teeth. But once we started talking, I got immediately off, gave him my phone number, let's take this off of here. So I feel like we did it the right way, at least the way that Kitty is trying to tell other people that this is how we do it. So it went pretty great, and he did all the things right off the bat that I liked about some other dates that I'd been on, and he didn't do any of the things that I didn't like about all the other dates. It's like, wow, it's like if I could have written, or if I could have dreamt about what I want, manifested what I wanted, he was doing all the things without me having to ask or nudge, or it was just instinctively. And I think that's where we've kind of gotten away from a lot, what Kitty's going to be talking about a lot in the podcast and in the corner, talking to my friends and new friends and anybody that wants to come on the show, for that matter, talking about their horror stories and why it's a dumpster fire and how can we fix it. So I think it had to be a God thing, because I've been praying for somebody to come in my life and for those signs, and I'm a big sign reader. So if I'm seeing a sign, I'm going, okay. Friend Lisa, you guys will meet Lisa. She's amazing. She's very much an empath and a medium. And she gave me the best advice that I've ever had, because I keep seeing what I think are signs, but it's like, this is God we're talking about. Like how do we know? Is that a sign that you're sending me, you're putting him in my path? Because I don't want to miss the sign, right? But I've done it before where I read the sign wrong. But there's a saying about that. People come into your life either for a reason or a season or for a lifetime or whatever it is. I think that's three. And so I asked Lisa, I said, how do I know? How do I know? Because I thought the last couple guys that I dated was like, oh, I'm seeing the signs. Oh, this is my father, my actual father, passed away in 2006, and I prayed that he's up there sitting with God, having their cigar and looking out for me, right? So thinking, combined with the funny little things that I know about my daddy, and thinking, all right, daddy's gonna be up there with God, going, okay, we're gonna send her someone, So I thought, okay, it's got to be stuff that's relevant to my father. So a couple of things. There was the guy I dated. He smoked cigars, and I thought, oh, okay, it was a comforting smell and scent to me. Smell and scent. Did I say that? Smell and just something comforting, where it reminds me of growing up. My dad, always smoking his cigars, and he used to make the cigar rings. And I was a little kid, I'd put my hand through them, and just a fond memory of him. So that smell that goes with that, it is very comforting. So I thought, okay, here's this guy, and there was a couple of other things that were signs that I thought, all right, this is the guy. And man, oh man, did that guy in literally like 2 weeks' time, I saw serious red flags and like psychopath. So I'm telling Lisa the story, and I said, so, I don't want to get my hopes up, because, hope had become a 4-letter word in a lot of ways just from my previous marriage, Kitty will get into that much later. But I'm sitting here going, okay, well, I don't want to miss the signs. I don't want to misinterpret the signs, right? Hell, what am I going to do? So she said, you know what? If you see a sign, if you think it's a sign, lean in. Just lean in. I'm like, well, that makes sense. Because if you lean in, you'll find out. It may take a short amount of time, it may take a longer amount of time, but this person may be the one, or they may be the one that gets you to the one, or they may be somebody that you meet that you may be in their life to help them. And I kind of did that with the last relationship that I had with somebody.
Keep left after 24 miles onto I-475 North.
I'm going to have to cut that out. Or maybe not. I don't know. We'll keep it in the... My GPS is talking to me. If the last guy I think I met wasn't for me, I think it was for him. And I think I helped him with a situation that he needed to take care of post his divorce and some things like that. So I think that was meeting for a season and a reason. So it was good. It was disappointing, but yeah, okay. But the thing is that you find out pretty quick, right? Mr. Purrfect said this to me, and it really rings true, that he was finally healed from, he was basically a widow, and he was finally ready to date again. He said, you have to be willing to meet people where they're at. And I think I was sort of always doing that, but I never heard anybody say it out loud. He said it out loud, and I went, you're right. Like, especially at our age, you're not changing somebody at this point. So if you're not willing to meet them where they're at and accept them for who they are and where they're at, and it could be where they're at in life, what station that they're at with their job, their home, their romantic relationships and their healing and things like that. You got to be able to at least meet them there. And then once you meet them there, then that's what dating is about, and getting to know somebody. And that's why, I feel like what I've learned about spending the weekends together and which you wind up intimacy pretty quickly, and then if this person isn't the right person, then for me at least, and I'm not a casual sex person, so it's like, then I'm regretting that, because that just really shouldn't have done that. So when you get to know each other, and if you meet each other where you're at, and then you can figure out, okay, well, this is where you're at. Is this where you want to be, or do you want to be somewhere else? What is your goal in life? Where do you want to end up, right? So then, if you both have that goal, and you kind of want to end up with the same things in the same places, in the same level of like whatever it is, the amount of money that you need or want, your physical capabilities, your health, all the things that we have to maintain, all those juggling all those balls in the air. Then you can say, okay, this person, I like their personality, I like their looks, I'm attracted to them. Usually, I would say in the first few months, you can find out if you both want to be in the same place. You gotta ask questions though. You gotta talk. You gotta communicate. That's another reason why you can't just start being physical together, because once you get physical, that kind of takes over, doesn't it? Like, it kind of does. It should. You know, once you got the hots for each other, and then you start as adults, you know, we start going there, and it's like that becomes a major focus of time, at least in those first year or so. Hopefully forever, but you know, let's be realistic about it. It takes over, and then you get so involved in that, you know, the physical, and let's, you know, your heart starts like beating, and you know, you can't be away from this person. The heart sort of takes over, but it's not the true heart. It's just the physical. And then once the physical kind of dies down a little bit, that, you know, you're not spending all your time in the bedroom, now you're like trying to struggle to get to know this person, and then you're like, oh, I don't really like them outside the bedroom. They're not fun, or I'm not having fun. And fun doesn't mean you have to be funny. I mean, it helps, you know, it helps at least to be able to laugh at yourself, right? You know, we've got to be fun enough to, you know, not be so serious all the time, and be able to tap into our inner child and be silly, right? And talk about silly stuff, and be vulnerable, be open. If you're not willing, big key there too, guys, if we're not willing to be vulnerable with someone fairly early, then that's going to handicap the relationship, the growth of the relationship. So back to Mr. Purrfect, we started talking on the phone, and I was pretty vulnerable. I pretty much said, you know, look, this is where I'm at, and you know, he asked me questions, which was great. You know, I asked him questions. It's like where we want to be. Of course, you know, we had to figure out, okay, this is where you're at. You have, you know, 3 kids. They're grown. They're off at college. Mine are 3 kids, grown. You know, they're doing this. They're doing that. One's off at college. We have a daughter that's the same age, both in college, which is great. Our last kid. So we found we had a lot of things in common, just finding out where we were at, and we did that over the phone, which is great. So we got to know each other a little bit, and then talked about our goals, about where we want to be. You know, first thing is how are we going to close a 3-hour gap, you know, at some point, if this relationship works. And I think people need to talk about, hey, I like you, you like me. If we're looking for love and we're looking for our mates, like we talk about in the podcast, then these are things you should talk about. I mean, you should talk about your health. You should talk about where you're at there. You know, look, I'll just say it. It's not a secret. I'm a type 2 diabetic. But I don't normally say that in the first few days, because I think, you know, I started thinking, oh my gosh, you know, what if that's a deal breaker for them? That, you know, or they think, oh, I'm going to have this sick woman at some point. You know, they don't know anything about diabetes, and they've heard, you know, probably some horror stories, or maybe their mom had it or whatever. So I was always kind of hesitant about doing that. And I don't think you need to say things like, you know, this in the first few dates, you know. But at some point, I think early on, I think we need to touch base about some of those things, so that you don't get too involved if something like that is going to be a deal breaker. Or, you know, you can talk about it, and you can quell someone's fears about it. Like, look, yeah, I'm diabetic, and you know, it's a struggle for me sometimes, but I'm trying to get things under control. I don't think, you know, at least at this point in my life, it's, you know, I'm still able to do all the things that I want to do for the most part, you know, and it's not, you know, it's not like you're going to have to be a caretaker. And I've heard, and it's usually from women, I've heard that, you know, there are guys out there, especially getting in our ages, you know, over 50, you know, guys' health are declining, and they're just looking for a nurse, you know, and that's not sexy, guys. I mean, we're mate shopping. We're looking for sexy too, right? You know, nobody wants to be a nurse. You know, they don't want to be that. So being honest, being open, being upfront, being transparent, I think is really, really important, especially at our age. When you're younger, maybe you have to talk about kids, you know, because at least you know in the first few months. Because look, like I said, I don't waste my time. I don't want to waste your time. Like there's no point to doing it in any time of life, you know. Did I learn some things from a few of these teen relationships? Sure. You know, do I feel like some of them were a waste of time? Yeah. Do I feel like others maybe weren't? I mean, yeah, I do. So again, if you can take something from a little small relationship so it doesn't seem like it was a waste of time, at least you had hope, and maybe had it turned out better, or maybe just a different timing had we met them later in life, yada yada. So there's that. So we're talking about all right, well, if things work out with us, it seems like we look good on paper, met each other where we're at, we've already had the date, you know that, okay, yeah, we're good there, you know. Amazing kiss at the end of the night, which was my deal breaker. Like, you can't kiss. You better be able to kiss after this date, after these flowers, because I'm going to be really upset. So luckily, Mr. Purrfect was pretty good at that, even though we got it kiss us, interrupt us. You'll have to hear that story you'll have to watch Kitty's Corner with Wendy to hear that story. But fun first date. So we talked about that. We said, all right, well, you know, are you going to be able, if this relationship works, because I want to get married. Do you want to get married? Yeah. Okay. I want to live with you. I want to live together. You know, am I able to come to Michigan and move in with you? Or are you able to come to Ohio and move in with me? Or do we, you know, buy a house together? Like, what are our options? So you talk about your options. You know, Mr. Purrfect and I have options, you know. Luckily for us, we're later on in life where, you know, not a whole lot keeping me in the Dayton, Kettering, Ohio. My mother is still with us, thank God. She's just, gosh, my rock. I can't imagine losing her, but I know that time is coming. And so I've always said I wanted to stay, you know, to be around my family. So the rest of it is, you know, my kids. But I think, you know, if I were to decide to move to Michigan, by the way, I'd still be an Ohio State fan if this does happen. I'm not going back to being a Michigan fan.
Keep left after 9 miles onto I-475 North.
All right. Thank you, car. If I could do that, all right, you know, I could still come see my kids. You know, 3 hours is not that big of a drive to come spend, whatever. So, and in my job and my career, you know, I could certainly do that. I could either work remotely or, you know, who knows? Not at all. Whatever. You know, that's the other dynamic that you have to worry about is, you know, and women look for men to be providers, and men should be in some degree but we need to do our jobs too, whatever that is, and it's different for each couple, I'm sure. So what I'm trying to get at is it's really important to talk about those things early on, so you can get that out of the way, and you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to figure it out later. To me, it was better to know that up front. Okay, so we're both like, all right, and he's in the same station of life too. Look, you know, I can move there, whatever. So the security was there to talk about future things. So now you got that out of the way. It's like, all right, well, now we just got to figure out how to navigate this. So the funny part that I'm getting to is in starting Kitty Chronicles, and I've had this idea. I'll probably do a video on my origin story, but I had this idea of creating the best dating app years ago when I got divorced and got thrust out into the dating app world and just hated it. But I've met a lot of really cool people, and I've heard a lot of their stories too. So again, a lot of good stories too. A lot of people I know met somebody on a dating app and got married. Well, hopefully, if Mr. Perfect works out, that's going to be my story, Kitty's story. So in doing this, and now I've got this whole side story to talk about, which is me meeting hopefully Mr. Perfect, who he is and what he does, and I'm gonna sort of share some of that, because I think it's like he's really setting the perfect example for what men should do. And I'm trying to help by setting a good example. And I know I'll fail probably at certain things, but I'm really trying to set a good example for what I think women should do and what men want. Because that was the whole reason for my podcast. I've talked to so many men. I know what they want, and that's why we're going to talk to women. We're going to tell you what you're doing wrong. We're going to tell you what you're doing right. And nobody's perfect. I am certainly far from it, but I have learned so much just being out here and being single, and I have a lot of guy friends and girlfriends, and we're all just sick of it. So this second layer was really another thing in leaning in to Mr. Perfect and saying, okay, now that I know that this Michigan thing is navigatable, is that a word? I can relax and I can go, okay, now we just got to figure out how we're going to date, how we're going to see each other, and how we're going to, not still take things slow and appropriate, but I'm not going to want to drive 3 hours, to just stay a night, turn around and drive home like he did for our first date. So I'm going to go there. He's going to come here. We're going to try to see each other at least once a week for, a couple days that we can put together, which is great. Luckily we have schedules that can accommodate that. So there's that. And I also feel like in the beginning of a relationship, this sort of, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right, guys? I mean, it's kind of nice. We didn't see each other this past week, and it gave me room, me and him, room to miss each other a little bit, and we did, and we stated that pretty up front. So don't be scared, guys and ladies. Don't be scared to be vulnerable and talk about what you want and be upfront about how you feel, because otherwise, and in my experience, God, more often than not, you get mixed signals from someone if they're not being honest and upfront, or if they're trying to deceive you, which is a whole other story. But if you really are looking for love, again, and that's what Kitty Chronicles and Kitty's Corner and Kitty in the City is all about. Let's try to do this the right way, right? So I got blessed with starting a podcast about starting from the beginning about dating and then getting into relationships and all of the things that are involved with that, especially at our age, that are sort of unique to the whole process. And I met somebody. It was like, okay, all right. And I'm not going to reveal it now, there was a lot of signs, actually, because he's checking off a lot of the boxes, right? But the biggest sign was something that was undeniably from my father. And I'm gonna hold on that. I'll let you guys stew on that for a little bit. He said something in a text conversation that blew my mind, and it was a nickname that my father called me. Just say that, and there's just no other way that he could have. It couldn't have been more of a smack in my face. Let's just put it that way. Like no way. Boy, that's funny right there. So I'm leaning in, guys. So
keep left after 1 mile onto I-475 north toward Maumee.
Thank you. What's nice is that it's pretty much a straight shot on 75 for me to get to him and him to get to me. So pretty nice, smooth sailing. So it's not too bad. So I'm going to be spending my time with Kitty in the city, in the big city. Vlogging it while I'm traveling. So get used to the surroundings. And for some reason, it's always raining. It's always raining. So I'm going to sign off for today and just leave you with this little bit. I hope you're going to be interested in this story, because I hope that
keep next left.
Think that Mr. Purrfect is going to continue to do things the right way, and really he did them the right way without me even having to tell him, which is super key. So I'm going to help you guys with that.
Drive straight after 3/4 of a mile onto I-475 north toward Maumee.
You're getting really involved in my conversation here with the cool cats. All right, Siri, and I'm just not. Anyway, sorry for the interruption. She's so rude. So we're going to be still talking about the do's and don'ts, and hopefully Mr. Purrfect will continue to do things, but communication, and I think I have something to do with that. I have a role to play in his continuing to do the things that make him Mr. Purrfect as much as he can be, and that's me communicating to
drive straight,
my wants, my needs, being clear, being upfront, and being vulnerable, because the only way he's gonna know how to do things is for me to tell him. And the only thing, if he's not doing something that I'm, it's frustrating me or whatever, you gotta tell him so they can fix it.
Keep left after 12 miles onto US 23 north.
All right, buddy. Well, get out of my way. Not the road rage here on some people. No. So back to being serious and trying to wrap this up. Sorry for the interruptions, folks. You just got to be open. You just got to, tell him. So he can continue, or she can continue to do the right things that are for you, that make it the right fit. Might not work on somebody else. I mean, somebody else might not like flowers. I don't know. I can't imagine any woman that wouldn't appreciate at least some flowers, or even just maybe one little flower or something that tells them that you were thought about, and, prior to the date, and you were, that's big. That's big, guys. So, and what kind of, it's not like you have to put a bunch of monetary effort into it, but it is effort, and it's just like the thought, the thought that counts. He thought enough to do that, and it, that's so sweet. It's so nice. So just be open and lean in, and then be communicative. So that's all I'm trying to do. Stay tuned. We'll tell you how this progresses. So far, so good. Oh, and Mr. Purrfect, if you're watching, don't fuck it up.